great young fellas looking to make a difference in people's lives over a cup of coffee.
You got it. You got it. Well, listen, today is going to be a bit of a courageous conversation, not necessarily for you and I, but I think that the people watching this are going to feel like this could be a little courageous, because we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about the money clinic, but we're going to get into some depth about money and about the beliefs around money and about why money, why for some money is a beautiful thing and why for others money is just a terrible thing, and all of the thoughts and feelings and that come with that. And I just want to start, Richard, by sort of asking you, I mean, I know this has been, because I have a bit of an inside view into the world of Richard Dolan, this has been years in the making, hasn't it? I mean, how did this come about? You know, Rain now doing money clinics, it's just kind of, it's very, very interesting, and it's a little different. So how did this come about?
Well, I got to tell you that as you and I were talking about this conversation, I actually told you that the clinic itself has been in 2 years of development. To be quite frank, actually, the money conversation, the way I see it, has been an obsession of mine for 25 years. Because when I started off as a cold call cowboy working at the Midland Wallwin, Bay Street firm, 42nd floor, I was making 300 cold calls a day every day. For rich people looking for rich people, or people with money. And I wasn't any of those, by the way. I was the brokest, poorest kid on that floor and on that street. But needless to say, over time, I began to really appreciate just what people with money did, how they walked, how they talked, how they carried themselves, the kind of conversations they had, what they wore, the kind of culture they created for themselves, the vacations they took. I really listened and observed, and I've got to admit, with a lot of envy, because I didn't have two ankles to rub together, and said, gosh, that's what it means to actually be wealthy. So I began to really appreciate what it took, and then there's no mistaking why I grew up in that industry. You know, now nearly 30 years later, I have been a pioneer in the wealth management world. I wrote books on money. I've taught certified wealth management courses, how to sell and market wealth management services at university levels. I've gone on to, in fact, tour with some of the greatest minds in the world of wealth management. And I've gone off to go and prove that I can actually do great things in that world. But I'm still haunted by what it means to have a really, really powerful relationship between oneself and money, between oneself and their financial state, with oneself and how they measure worth and wealth. And so it's a new program, but it's sincerely an old conversation. It's going to likely be considered my magnus opus, if it were. It's going to be the pinnacle of the work that I've been doing for so long as a researcher and writer, and I'm really, really happy that it's come together.
Well, what I find interesting is the people listening to this, perhaps, and I'm not sure, right? There's people listening to this interview that have been in the self-development, personal development, self-awareness, self-discovery game probably for a long time. So they may be very empathetic to the fact that we're going to go to this conversation. But there's others who are just logging in right now and just seeing, you know what? I thought this was about real estate. I thought Rain was about real estate. Why are we now talking about money? And I find this to be a very interesting question, because at the end of the day, when you start digging into this, you know, you don't get stuck on tactics. It's something deeper that often sticks people and often makes it difficult for people to move forward. And it's some of these things we're going to dig into at the Money Clinic, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And a great analogy that I'll draw would be one from my own self and at my own expense. And some people might take a look at me and say, well, gosh, you know, easy for him to say, look at how he is and how he speaks or what he looks like. He came out the chute that way. Not true. I mean, I had a really difficult time getting into shape. And really early, I learned that it wasn't what I did in a gym that made the difference. It's actually what they say is 80% diet. Now, a lot of us all know this. Probably some of you are saying, yeah, so what's that got to do with me, money, and even getting into real estate? But here's the thing. I thought the same thing about diet. I thought, what does it matter what I eat, put in my body, even drink, got to do with the shape I'm in when I can work my ass off, let's say. I can be on the treadmill for 3 hours. I can press the weight. I can be there every day. And it's because of this. It's because that piece of time you do the working out, the repetitions, right? Whatever it is that you do is a very small percentage of what you do for the rest of the time on this earth. Mm-hmm. And much of that is all about the way you nutrify yourself, the way you recover, the way you, in fact, rebuild, the way, in fact, you treat and hone and truly preserve and protect this temple. And so what's really at the culprit of what makes diets and or means of living a nutritious life is the culprit, is not the diets don't work, we don't work. The diet. So there's a behavioral change, there's a mind change, there's a shift. And you and I just had this conversation yesterday over a wonderful lunch where we cheated a little bit on how much we ate and what we drank in the middle of the week. That compromised my values. I only drink alcohol on a weekend. But in your company, I'll be more than happy to throw that rule out. That's why you and I can't have lunch every day. But that kidding aside, you see the point? I compromise my values and I compromise my commitment and what comes with it through diet as the field of play, as the metric, my diet, my weight, that's the metric. And I say, hey, it's not about what I eat. It's the way I think around the times to eat, knowing what I'm committed to. So money's the same way. The money is the exact same way. To shift your relationship to your financial circumstances, you've got to get really clear as to what they are. To really shift your relationship to money, you've got to really, really observe where you are. To really observe what your relationship is to worth or wealth. And we'll get into those distinctions in a moment because those are now 4 I've just rhymed off and you're likely thinking those are the same, aren't they? And no, they're not. And that becomes another challenge for people. But whatever that is, you've got to step back and ask yourself, how am I measuring, how am I gauging, and how am I holding, viewing, or observing myself and my relationship to those things? Because at the end of the day, your personal fitness isn't measured in a meal, right? It's measured over time.
Yep.
And your fitness, your financial fitness, it's not measured at a time, it's measured over time. And what ends up happening is that people make these short bursts of outcome. I think it's like going to the gym on a Monday and saying, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
That didn't work. Gosh, it'll take you weeks, if not months, just to start moving the needle in a meaningful way. And money's the same way.
Yeah.
But people don't have that relationship to money.
But Rich, sorry to jump in, but you're bringing up a very good question because there's people listening to this, no doubt for sure, because I've also thought it in the past but I've tried this, Richard. I've tried this and I've tried that. So why is this money clinic different?
Well, because, we do, by the way, I'm the culprit of that. I mean, I can go through the plethora of ideas I've had and I've deployed and I mean, everyone in my life has suffered. I mean, I got into get rich quick schemes and I got into day trading. I bought and sold stocks. I mean, no one's lost more money, both in workshops and programs on how to get ahead fast. I've bought vending machines. I've gotten into multi-level marketing. I've sold stuff I shouldn't and I've never even used, nor would I even recommend you using. But all in the spirit of getting ahead financially. And here's the thing. We do so much to figure out what we need to do it faster and greater and brighter and better. We don't spend equally as much time as to what it takes to who to be. So the ontological, the metaphysical, the quality of my relationship to my commitment and my word and my behaviors and my actions, that relationship has got to be consistent with whatever I do, right? So for example, I can take my son to a Raptor game and that might be deemed by some by observation, that's a great dad. But if people aren't listening, maybe they would listen in a little bit closer and hear the quality of our conversation. That might change your view of things. You might say, gosh, did you hear how he spoke to his son, how he's being with his son? Gosh, that's not a great dad. Now, that's not the truth because me and my buddy are really like, that was a boys' night out. We're boys. I mean, that's my son, I love my boy. But the point is that sometimes what you see isn't what there is said to be. So what you see is not always what you get. And that's why really stepping back and understanding there's an ontological sense of being an investor. There's the metaphysics of being an investor. There's an art to being an investor. And
well, interesting that you mentioned this, Rich, because the art of being an investor is a topic that was introduced this year at Acre for the first time ever. And I'm really getting the sense that this is going to be a real focus for Rain going forward, is differentiating between the science of investing, which Rain has been an absolute pioneer in, a leader, the best, the fastest, the largest for the last 26 plus years, and will continue to be for the next hundreds of years. But we're introducing a new conversation called this art of being an investor, aren't we?
Well, yeah, and the reason why that's important is to create the distinctions, right? To say, look, over here is the science of real estate investing, the fundamentals, the foundations, and the focus. I mean, the recipes, the formulas, the data, the matrix. I mean, everything from the process, protocols, and research. These are the things you saw. And by the way, that's a finite set of science. Science quite rigorous. It follows a formula, right? With a proven outcome. The art is a little scarier for people because there's an ebb and flow, and it's not a one size fits all. And that's where we as human beings really account to who we are in the matter of doing that thing. Back again to the analogy of my son, he's a big lover of basketball and he's a part of a basketball team. And I can assure you that whole team of 12 players, they all want to play. Now, from the science of playing the game, not all of them know to play the game, not fully, they're young kids. But in the art, the passion, the power, the sense of conviction, drive, discipline, all those attributes that make them the art of being a player, you see in different levels. I mean, we have kids who don't even barely know how to, in fact, execute a play, but will take a ball diving because in the art of being a player, they're all in. They're all in. And when it comes to the field of play called money, growing your wealth, generating worth, we're not all in.
Now, hold, Rich, I really apologize. I hope you're okay with me jumping in like this.
An opportunity to sip my coffee.
You said something fascinating there. I want people to pick up on it. You said the game of money. That's interesting, Rich. There's people on this listening to this right now thinking money's not a game. Money's, and they have these thoughts around what money is. But interesting, you said the game of money. Are you saying money is a game?
Well, yeah, now we've let the cat out of the bag because now really we're starting to lift the hood to the money clinic. And what happens whether you're attending that one day, which we're promoting, which is an intensive of the 2-day, which is really the next step. And then there's a multi-day where there's a retreat format where you and I take people away and we really dig into creating one's financial life plan that will last their lifetime and be their legacy. That's epic, but more on that another time. So if everything was just a game, if you were to consider that even life's a game, the best way to, in fact, win it, if that's true, is learn the rules and the means to winning the game, right? Because we've often said in real estate hasn't changed. The way to invest hasn't changed, but the way to play that game and win that game has. And so knowing that as the backdrop and knowing that the game is called money, the question becomes, well, hold on, and let me just really study all there is to understand about the science to money, so I can appreciate the art of getting more of it. Let me share 4 really important distinctions as we move forward. And what drives these 4 distinctions, JG, is the fact that there's a real, true operating motive, which is financial happiness. So there I said it, financial happiness. So if I want to grow financially happier, it means living life, right, without financial compromise. And by design. So I'm not waiting for my next paycheck. I'm not hoping and praying I win the lottery. I'm not wishing my parents' death early so I can inherit some dough. That's not a financial plan. But all kidding aside, by the way, I've thought all those things. Calling my mom, hey mom, how are you? And she's like, I'm doing great. I'm like, oh, great. That's horrible. I thought you were sick. But that all being said is the four distinctions to understanding the field of play is first, you got to really understand what financial means. Financial is a measurement, right? It doesn't mean it's your wealth life in totality. 2 is money, right? The instruments of value, coins, dollars, cents. The 3rd is wealth. And wealth, you might think, is actually the accumulation of all these things, but actually it's the expression of those things. Nice watches, great house, cool car, all that stuff. Wealth often can be seen as the experience of having your financial plan and financial game in order with lots of money to show for it, yeah?
Yes.
But the 4th, the one that matters to me, is worth, right? There's lots of rich people that I've worked with that are internally bankrupt. There's lots of people who've got it all together, tons of cash, tons of great statements that prove that they've got the balance that's the biggest and the boldest, and they, in fact, have all the wealth to prove it, but they don't feel they're worth it. And so what we often do is we actually are, in fact, climbing this mountain called having all the money in the world that's measurable. And then we get to the top and we go, now what? And we look around and we say, for what? And even worse, we summit a mountain that wasn't even worth climbing. We see that over on the horizon, there was another mountain worth climbing, worth summiting. And so oftentimes as we get older, we know that things that we've given a lot of meaning earlier on, in fact, grows smaller. So getting your values and your views, there you have it. Getting your values and your views, not your opinions and beliefs, that's in the background, but your values and your views shapes your financial virtues. So getting your values and your views are so important on money, on finance, on wealth and on worth. And there opens up a whole new conversation to a whole new game. I'm getting a lot more of all of that.
So, excuse me. So when people come to the money clinic, and I'm taking mad notes here on my iPad, which I know you're going to want one for Christmas.
I got to get one of those, man. If you're watching this, folks, I mean, he's got this giant iPad. It changes colors. I write notes on pages all the time. Look at this thing. You can't see anything on there, but that thing's cool.
It's just dark. See, there are the notes there. See?
That's a cool gizmo. I'm an Apple guy, so I can't believe I don't have one of those.
So Rich, what I find that's very interesting here is that when by attending the money clinic, people will be discovering, they'll be confronting, they'll be uncovering some things that have been holding them back their entire lives that often, and this is probably interesting, at least this is what I'm getting from you, and tell me if I'm wrong, but often they didn't know was holding them back.
Dude, that's it. You hit the nail on the head. What we call those things are financial blind spots. And you know what I mean by a blind spot? You know, I'm driving the car, and if I don't check over my shoulder, if I don't look over there, that's my blind spot. I can turn and hit someone, sideswipe someone, and that would be an illegal lane change. So in life, we have blind spots. In money, we have financial blind spots. And I want to say this slowly because it's important, because you hit the nail on the head. I want to animate the point and underline it because I love that you just said that. That which you don't distinguish, right? Those that you do not distinguish. If I don't distinguish the financial blind spots that get me, you know, bad spending, horrible view, a less than view of what I can and cannot do, they create what's called financial dysfunctions. So financial blind spots, if left undistinguished, becomes the cause to financial dysfunctionality. And that which you don't distinguish owns you. And that's where patterns show up, right? That's where repeatable patterns show up. And some people call that your financial thermostat, and that's true. T. Harv Eker taught us that metaphorically. It's your cybernetics, right? Your reticular activating system, the way you focus and all that's cool. But look, it's simple. In one day, we're going to get you clear in distinguishing the very things that are hidden out of your plain sight. And by the way, you know who put them there? You did. Not you. They did. I got my own. Real quick story. I told the story now twice. And I recently saw my uncle who had a really good friend who owned a gas station. And when I was a young kid, I was 14 years of age and I was pumping gas. Back in the time when gas was 32 cents a liter. That just puts my age right there. You know, when gas was 32 cents. That was 100 years ago. But as I'm pumping gas was cool. Now, I had the job of opening and shutting the gas station down on a weekend. And it was awesome, like 14 with this responsibility. The only thing of value really, and I thought it was the cash, it was actually the gas, but was the float. So back in the time when we paid cash, people paid cash. And so I had this massive float. And I was supposed to, at the end of Saturday, deposit it into a large safe, and then the next day start anew. And do you know what ended up happening? My very first time getting that wad of cash, I was going out with the boys that night down to the pool hall. And I thought, you know what'd be really cool? Carrying all that cash in there. And when I walked in the pool hall, 14 years of age with a giant wad of cash, this thing was massive. My pants almost exploded with this wad. And I would pull out a $2 bill, and I pulled out the $5 bill.
Did you say a $2 bill?
Yeah, a $2 bill and a $5
back in
bill.
the day.
Back in the day. And a $1 bill, and I would pull these things out because all I had was $15 and it was in that wad. Here's the point. The measurement of that money gave me a sense of worth. But I knew really it wasn't mine. So although I had it in my hands, I didn't really have it in here. And so some of our financial constructs, some of the ways in which we are actually, in fact, inheriting a lot of bad behaviors, bad views, bad values, is how we relate to money and the measurement of it in our lives, and how we collapse it with self-worth. How we collapse it with a concept of self. So that if I had none of that, if I only really cared $15, which is all I had, I felt poor, broke, less significant, not worth it being there. Especially to impress all my older friends. When they saw that money, JG, they were like, dude, you're paying for everything. It's like, no, it's not my money. I was saying it in my mind, but I didn't tell them that. And of course, fast forward the story the next morning, of course, my uncle's friend thought that I'd actually taken the money and we had a big reckoning. But the moral of the story, though, is that we actually, in fact, confuse what we, in fact, should value, and we, in fact, get wrong how we measure what's valued.
Ah.
And so when you actually start to slow the conversation down and create these distinctions, you begin to realize what we've held as a value and how we, in fact, measure that which is a value. And when you recalibrate those things, you all of a sudden have a very different view of what you've got.
Yeah.
And that's what the Money Clinic's going to also accomplish when you attend it.
So it really sounds like if somebody, if I'm thinking from the audience's perspective now, and I'm thinking if somebody's sort of been running up against the wall, they've been trying different things, but just can't seem to get ahead. If they've been trying different strategies, different tactics, and just can't seem to break through the glass ceiling or some barrier that sometimes is visible and often is invisible, and they just don't know why, it sounds like this would be a great place for them to come. January 19th in Vancouver. The inaugural, the first, right? The Money Clinic. I mean, it's going to be a great time.
Dude, we've been testing. We've been sprinkling a little bit of our IP, a little bit of what we call the academic goodness across a couple of acres. We had an acre in the last quarter of 2018 in Edmonton. Our friends in Edmonton, we love you, and our friends in Vancouver. And what's amazing is across the 2 acres, what we did across, I guess, 800 to 900 people in total was get a sense of where these conversations would land. And we heard 3 things consistently. The time is now to have a real courageous conversation about money. And they're really happy to hear that now we're cracking open what could be considered a taboo. Yeah, a taboo topic, a topic that some people confuse as mindset stuff, motivational stuff. Look, if I were to talk about health and make you live 20% longer, you'd listen. And if you think that has nothing to do with real estate, then you shouldn't be investing, because there's no point getting rich in a hurry when you're going to die quick. So the same thing is true for your mindset around money. Number 2 is people said that it's about time that someone actually pressed pause, not stop, but pause in my pursuit of getting wealthier in the things that matter through real estate, to really recalibrate my view, to relearn, right? Reestablish, unlearn some of the bad behaviors I've got at play. Because I tell you, I got now 15 doors, or I already have 35 doors, or I already got 100 doors, and I'm not any happier. Right? And so that's really great. But the third, this is the best one. What we heard through our tests from our very own clients and even some of their friends is that some of the breakthroughs that they got just even being in the conversation, let alone taking on the exercises, left them feeling less weight on their back about their view of getting richer in the way that matters to them. So as it's been said, it's not the weight in life we carry that kills us. It's the way we carry it that does. And so it happens in life, right, JG? In business, in partnerships. I mean, guys, we all have weight. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a billionaire or a multi-millionaire that is worth. This is not about getting rich. This is not about having all that you need. This is about being at peace financially with yourself and your financial future, so that you can whistle while you grow richer in the things that matter. Yeah, and that's important. That's super important to do it with really a sort of a tap in your step, if it were.
Excellent. Well, Rich, listen, I can keep digging into this all day, and we will do this again and again. We'll have other courageous cups of conversation. But folks, if you want to sign up for the Money Clinic, go to raincanada.com. You'll see the information there. You can sign up, all the relevant details, the event, the time, the agenda. All that stuff is there. I hope you've enjoyed this. Richard, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. And this has been great. I think people really have an eye-opening to, wow, this is different. And I really hope people appreciate that RAIN, as the Real Estate Intelligence Network, is really taking this on in terms of the science. We've been pioneers in the science of investing now for 26 years, but we're taking on a new conversation called the art of being an investor.
Wonderful.
Richard, thank you.
At the end of the day, thank you, and thank you all of you for listening, because at the end of the day, we're here to grow and not to die quick. So let's get to where we got to go, happier, lighter, and absolutely on fire for what really is possible in all things life.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you very much.